Thank you for joining me for another video. Last week we finished up Genesis chapter 4. Specifically we closed with let's call it the sort of enigmatic story of Lamech, the descendant of Cain, and we got into Adam's next generation, which would be Seth, who we're actually going to talk very briefly about this week. He's not really a major player in the grand scheme of Scripture, but we are beginning Genesis chapter 5, which is a genealogy. And as I mentioned before, genealogies often hold some sort of clues as to what's going on at the time. It gives you more information than really you would glean at face value. So that being said, I'm not going to wax long on this, but let's go ahead and get into it. So if you happen to have a copy of the Torah handy, or if you just want to rely on the words on your screen, either one is fine. We're going to be reading the first 5 verses of Genesis chapter 5. So it begins, it says, זה ספר תולדות אדם ביום ברו אלוהים אדם בדמות אלוהים עשה אותו. So it says, this is a really strange introduction. Okay, let me just go ahead and throw that out there. This is a really strange introduction, to the extent that even commentators have all stepped in and said, dude, this is really weird. Why are we even talking about who opens a chapter this way? But we'll get into why it might be here in just a bit. There are 2 possible translations of this verse. Really, there are numerous ones if you count, multiple translations for every single word. But 2 main variants. And I'll give you both. Why not? So it starts out by saying, this is the book of the generations. This word for generations could also mean, histories or genealogies, or just various different things along those lines, of Adam, or of man, because again we discussed before that Adam, the Hebrew word Adam, really just means man. Okay. Interestingly enough, so does Enosh, which we also discussed before. So this is the book let's call it the account, the historical record maybe, of the so Toldot could be, I guess, descendants, like generations, but we're going to go with this is the book of the let's say generations of Adam or of man, on the day that God created him, that God created Adam or man, in the image of in the likeness of God, he made him. It's a really weird verse to even translate. Wow. Verse 2. Zachar unqva baram wa yavarech otham wa yaqra et shamam Adam bayom hibaram. This one is a little bit more straightforward. So it says, male and female, he created them, and he blessed them, and he called their name, notice the plural usage here, their name, Adam, or man, on the day that they were created. Vayhi Adam shloshim umath shana, and Adam was Vayechi Adam shloshim umath shana, and Adam lived 130 years. Vayoled bidmutho kesilmo vayikra et shemo Sheth, and he had, to make it more readable, he had a son in his likeness, after his image, or like his image, and he called his name Seth. ויהיו ימי אדם אחרי הולידו את שeth 800 shana. And so it says that, and Adam, this is really weird because normally it says the days of his life. That's something that I'm going to get into in a bit. And the days of Adam, after having Seth, Shmona Me'oth Shana, were 800 years. Wayoled Banim Ubanot, and he had, let's insert the word other, sons and daughters. The word other is not there. It just says he had sons and daughters. ויהיו כל ימי אדם אשר חי 900 שנה ו30 שנה וימות. Then it tells us that all the days of Adam were that he lived were 900 years and 30 years, and he died. So we're going to stop there and cut. Okay, so the book of the genealogies of Adam. Okay, I'm not going to get into it this week, but there are several opinions about what exactly it means when it says the book. I am, however, going to get into 3 opinions as to what this book means. Okay, there's a slight difference there. I'm going to try next week, if I remember, I'm going to try next week to explain what I mean by, when it says book. So, this genealogy is opening really, really strange. The book of the genealogy of Adam, really strange when you open it. To my knowledge, off the top of my head, there are not very many passages in the entire corpus of the Tanakh where it says something like that. Most of the time that you see expressions like this is the book, it refers to a literal book. That's not the case here, although, to be fair, we are going to talk about 3 different interpretations that are common in Jewish tradition that saw this verse and said, that's a really odd way to say it. What would that possibly mean? Well, this is what I think it means. And then, some other guy speaks up and he's like, no, you're wrong. This is what it really means. Then some other guy steps up and says, no, you guys are both wrong. Okay? And this is really what it means. So, first one I'm going to get into is the Midrash. So the Midrash makes it a point to comment on, multiple times, on just how strange it is that it's worded this way. It is a strange way to do it. How would it make sense if I were to write a book and open it by saying, this is the book that Judah wrote, about X, Y, Z. But I wrote it because my name's probably on the cover. At the very least, on the introduction page, it's it's one of those passages that you come to and you're just like, that's odd. And the Midrash picks up on it, because of course it does, because the Midrash was written by men who think like men, who probably realistically, after reading about some of their lives, were not that different from me. Some of them really strike me as being really the type of jokers that I am. But a good example of that, so I can't remember exactly which one it was, but there was a sage who commented about Leah. So the text says that Leah, the wife of Jacob, had weak eyes, right? It said that her eyes were tender, I guess is what I say. And he studied this with his Chabruta, right? His study partner. His study partner overheard him say that Leah had weak eyes. And to which his response was, I wish I could remember where this was and who said it, because it's like absolutely hilarious. If you know anything about rabbinical writings, you know, it's just, this is like one of those rare gems that you can look at just be like, that's good. So he hears his Chabruta, his study partner say, oh, Leah had weak eyes, to which he responds very, I interpret this to be, very quickly, very wittyly, if that's a word. He just says, your mom has weak eyes. And it's just like, you read that, and you just, okay, so maybe it's just me that read that and just started laughing. To the extent that the rabbi I was studying with at the time was just like, dude, what is your problem, man? It doesn't mean it like that. He's saying it like in question, you're saying your mom had weak eyes? And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what it says. It's very clearly a statement, but, it's one of those passages where you can see that the rabbis were really just guys who joke around a lot. They really were a lot like me, like, modern day Jews. In fact, I would argue that the let's call them hyper religious Jews, these ones that they call ultra-Orthodox, the stereotypical image of a Jew that everyone has in their mind. If I say, oh, he's Jewish, everyone imagines, the long simanim, the long side locks and everything like that, black hat, that sort of thing. Okay, that's an Eastern European tradition. But I think that a lot of the ancient sages would really have a problem with that. And this, as you can imagine, doesn't make me especially popular in some rabbinical circles, because, never mind, I'm not going to make that joke. But they, it doesn't make me especially popular because they're like, oh, you can't say that because what if, and no. These are just guys. These are just goofballs, just like us, okay? Let's be honest. And if you look at some of the verses in the Tanakh, you're going to see the same thing. I'm not going to point out any because somebody's going to be like, that's blasphemous. But it's not. Case in point, Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, is very vulgar in a lot of the things that he says. Jeremiah, vulgar in a lot of the things that he says. To the extent that there is, it's not profanity anymore, but it would have at the time very likely have been considered to be profanity, actually in the text of Scripture itself, which tells us these guys are just like us, okay? It's one thing to admire them, but let's admire them for who they were. They were just like us. Now, that being said, let's jump back to the Midrash because I got way off topic. So there are at least 3 places in the Midrash where it specifically says, what a strange way to open up a statement, especially since where's the book, right? So the Midrash comes along and says that really what this means is that God gave Adam a sort of prophetic inspiration to where God showed him all the future generations that would descend from him, and all of their leaders, all of their prophets, their sages, and it showed them, the great calamities that would befall them, and that sort of thing. And that's really a nice idea, and it does get into the likelihood that Adam did have, there is a Jewish tradition that does say that Adam did have a certain extent of what we call Ruach HaKodesh, the divine inspiration. Okay, and my issue that I have with it, don't get me wrong, I like it. I love the way that it's written, and it certainly has merit. I'm just not going to put all my eggs in that basket, so to speak. I don't know if that's an Easter reference or what, but I said it, so it's kosher now, I guess. But the issue that I have with it, the only thing that really keeps me from accepting it fully is it only goes 10 generations from Adam, and then it just stops. That's not all the generations after Adam and their leaders and their sages and whatnot. No, it's not. It's 10 generations. I suppose you could argue that, oh, well, it's 10 generations. Really, it doesn't mean every generation, it just means 10 generations, because 10 is every. Apparently, Adam's descendants only lived for 10 generations. I don't know. But we know that the 10th generation was Noah, so I don't know. Like I said, it's one of those that I don't discredit, I don't discount it. I'm just not fully on board with it. Because there are a couple of nitpicky things that I have issues with, right? So, second interpretation that is given for this verse, for why it opens up saying, this is the book of the generations of Adam, is the rationalist thinkers, okay, like the Rambam. That would be Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon and Rabbi Avraham ibn Ezra. These are medieval thinkers. They were very firm in their belief that, nah, dude, it's just saying that, this is just his genealogy. It's just an historical record. There's nothing significant about it. Now, the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, does say that it refers to the transmission of the image of God in his understanding from Adam to Seth, and so on and so forth down to Noah. Now, the image of God in the Rambam's understanding is that it refers to man's capacity for intelligence, man's capacity for morality, our capacity pursuit of knowledge. I would also add on to that man's spiritual capacity for having the ability to understand that, yes, we had a creator who is in fact worthy of worship. As opposed to everything before that, where they didn't really worship deities because they didn't really have deities. They just sort of had spirits, totems, that sort of a thing. So I'm just going to throw this out there. I most identify with the rationalist thinkers on that it is just a record of his genealogy. Aeroplanes flying overhead. It is just a record of his genealogy, and it is a record of the transmission of this image of God, of spiritual humanity. Okay, let's call them Adamite humans, as opposed to shamanist humans, who carried this torch for the belief in Hashem, the belief in God, and the worship of God, as opposed to lesser gods and everything like in the days of Enosh, right? So the third interpretation is the mystical thinkers like the Ramban. That would be Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, okay? Not the same as the Rambam. Okay, they have different fathers. Just the fact that they have the same name, Moshe, is just, purely coincidental. And also, in addition to Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, also Rabbi Moshe de Leon, because Moshe, if you haven't figured it out yet, is probably the single most common male name in the Jewish world. And it's the name of Moses, so naturally it makes perfect sense, right? So the Ramban taught that and also the Rabbi Moshe de Leon, who was the author of the Zohar, they taught that really, in addition to being a physical genealogy, really it's showing the transmission of what they call the divine image from Adam down throughout the generations. Now, their understanding of the divine image and my understanding of the image of God are two very different things. Okay, this is one of those places where the Kabbalists, the mystical, or the mystics, I should say, and the rationalists are at odds with each other about something as basic as the definition of a single term. We're not going to get into that. I'm not going to, I don't want to sow division or anything, because there is quite the rift between rationalist and mystical thinkers in Judaism. Ironically, I'm more of a rationalist, but the synagogue that I go to is more mystical, so that's fun. And honestly, I can't really discredit the mystical interpretation of this either. I think all three opinions, all three interpretations do have their own merits. I just happen to side with the rationalist one, and not because I'm a rationalist, but because it makes the most rational sense to me. I do like loud vehicles. I do like the Rambam's understanding, Moshe ben Maimon. I do like his understanding of what the image of God is, and I sort of adopt that as my own. So we're going to stop talking about the how do you call it, the first verse, okay, and we're going to get into a little bit of the second verse. Okay, so the second verse just kind of tells us that, look at my notes here, it tells us that, when God created humanity, it says that he created us male and female, and he called their name Adam, their name man. Okay, you could take that to mean that it refers to their, I understand it obviously to mean that it refers to their spirituality, their consciousness of the Creator. Ooh, I could start my own cult like that. I'm not going to, but I could. The Creator consciousness, man. You just gotta hone in, man. And free cannabis for everybody, I guess. I don't know. But the be a pretty popular religion. But the man, I forgot what I was even saying. Oh yeah, so I understand it to mean man in his spiritual consciousness of the Creator, but to be fair, it could just as much go the other way and say that, and this is one of those secrets of Judaism that they don't really tell you out front. So anti-Semites, pay attention. This is where we're gonna, these are secret teachings that you're not gonna hear from the pulpit, especially if there are goyim there, right? No, you'll probably still hear it from the pulpit. But this is one of those things that we don't really advertise, is that a man, he's not really a man without a wife. Where do we get that from? Well, we get that from this verse where it says that Adam and Eve together, male and female together, God called their name man, or their names man. Okay? Meaning, a man is not really complete until he gets married, until he's married and has kids, but we're not going to get into that just yet. Okay, that's I think that's Exodus, Leviticus, somewhere around there, right? So that's in the middle of the book. We're still at the very beginning of the book, so we got a long way to go. For the 3 verses that I was reading, noticed already, notice that it says that Adam lived 130 years. He had a son named Seth, and then after he had Seth, he lived for another 800 years, for a grand total of 930 years. And you may be thinking to yourself, wow, that seems like a really, really long time to live. And yeah, it does. It really does. I plan to live forever. I don't know about the rest of you, but I plan to live forever. So I'll let you know when I hit 930 what I think about it. I do plan to live forever. I just don't think I'll get there today. But the if you watched last week's video, and yet that I most certainly am going to bring up, rationalist that I am, and that issue is that the upper limit, we know scientifically that the upper limit of the human lifespan is roughly 120 years. Okay, could be a little more, could be a little less, could be 5 minutes, depending on how much your parents like you. I don't know. You know, it depends on how much you cry as a baby, right? Depends on what's going on in your life. Okay, so but the upper limit for the average human lifespan, let's cap that at 120 years. Okay. So then we have a problem here, because now we have Adam having children at 130, right? Well, it turns out it's not as big a problem as you might think, and there actually have been several Jewish thinkers throughout the years who have proposed very reasonable, very rational approaches to it. And the one that I'm going to share with you today, I'm not going to get into the other ones. I will share with you next week, God willing, if I remember, that you know, I will share with you a couple of the other ones, but I'll share with you the one that I think makes the most sense today. And credit where credit's due. I learned this from my friend and teacher, Rabbi Michael Barron, who is, he won't tell you this, but the guy is absolutely brilliant. He is his own worst critic, and he fully leans into that. He does a lot of academic papers. He does a lot of teachings online. You know, he does what do they call it? Webinars. You know, covering different topics. He was actually talking about, and I need to get with him again. You know, he's talking about revamping his Secrets of Genesis course, and just sort of going with that, reteaching Genesis, you know, just a few major points in Genesis that he does so much better than I do. But I digress. So I'm going to tell you the possibility that he told me that, or that he taught me, that really, in my opinion, makes perfect sense, makes all the sense in the world, and it brings scripture from the realm of mythology to the realm of reality. Because let's be honest, you look at this and you see, oh, Adam lived 900. What did he, you know, let his hair down out through the window, right, to let up Prince Charming, to let him out of the Garden of Eden? I don't know, man. I don't even know how you could synthesize those two. But so he calls it his cadet branch theory. He was the very first person that I heard teach it, but I have, since hearing him teach it, I have seen it in a few other sources as well. Notably, David Roll teaches a variant of it, or perhaps Rabbi Barron teaches a variant of David Roll's version. I don't know. It just depends on how you look at it. So it goes like this, right? If you know anything about human history, you know anything about how we developed from, you know, hunter-gatherers into settled cities, into empires, okay, you're going to know that once a tribe reaches a certain size, it's too big for the resources of that local area to support the population. So, generally speaking, they have exactly two options for what to do in that event. One of them is to just cull the population, you know, just kill off however many percent of the population to make it sustainable. Okay, and you actually see this in a lot of dystopian science fiction stuff. You know, I'm not going to get into any right now, but you will see it in a lot of. Okay, fine. Stargate SG-1 has an episode about it. I believe Stargate Atlantis also has an episode about it. And then there are a lot of other science fiction shows that, and just for the record, the whole Stargate franchise, phenomenal. I loved it. It was great. But in all honesty, we're talking like, almost 20 seasons of television in addition to movies. Okay, so strap in. But the second option is, once a population reaches a certain size, and this is the one that we see play out throughout history all over the place. Okay, once a certain population reaches a specific size, it becomes too big to support itself in that area, and so it divides itself into two camps. Okay, you've got, and we actually even see it in the Torah a couple of times. The incident with Abraham and his nephew Lot, their flocks and their servants and everything, that basically their whole tribe was just too big to stay together, and so they just sort of split up amicably. They were still friends, they were still family after it. They just kind of, Abraham was a crazy uncle who went off this way, Lot was the crazy nephew who went off this way. And let's be honest, it's that way in every family, right? So in this model, if we were to adopt this model, basically the way that it works is Adam founds a dynasty. Okay, he is, let's just for argument's sake say the firstborn son, or the most senior son of Adam, excuse me, is the leader of the tribe, right? So Adam begins this dynasty, and the dynasty is going great and strong for about 130 years, and then, oh snap, they get way too big. There's just not enough food to support our population. Okay, so the current leader, let's call him Adam, because he's a part of that Adamite dynasty, okay, has a son called Seth, and he says, listen, Seth, this city is getting too big to handle, so I want you to take some of the people, and I want you to go off to 5 miles down the street. Ironically, that's what it was back in the day. You just have to just go a few miles down the road, and yes, that's far enough away that now we can have two population centers without putting too much strain on either one. And so Seth goes there. Seth is still loyal to Adam, right? So Seth's entire cadet branch dynasty is still loyal to the main Adamite dynasty until the Adamite dynasty dies out after 930 years. Okay, Seth, meanwhile, is the king of his local city. He is and presumably any villages that may have popped up in that general area. And after a while, the population there gets so big that he sends out a colony as well, so on and so forth, until the entire area is just blanketed with people who are related to each other, perhaps distantly, but they are related to each other, and we can actually see that happening in the case of Abraham and his son Isaac was married off to one of Abraham's relatives from the old dynasty, right? And so she comes down. This is Rivka. This is Rebecca, right? And they have kids. And so what does Rebecca do? She says, "Oh, let me send my son Jacob off to marry from the same dynasty," right? So we actually have examples of this in the Torah, in the book of Genesis even. So it's not so far-fetched. So what makes this a better alternative? Well, because now you have an eponymous founder of a dynasty who is just a man, right? He's not some supernaturally long-lived, God, man, God thing that you'll find in other religious traditions dating back to antiquity. We're dealing here with very real people very much like you and me, who would joke, and they were, they were just as rude and crass as we are sometimes, right? And they, these are not some big, special mystical type people. No, these are just people, right? They didn't live, for in Adam's case, 930 years. No. Adam lived a normal lifespan. Let's give him a reasonable lifespan, given the time. Let's say Adam lived, let's make him especially long-lived for the time. Let's say that he lived 60 years, okay? Then Adam died. Well, between 60 and 130 years, there's still got that, you still have that 70-year gap. Okay, well, let's say that there are 3 or 4 more rulers during that time frame who spring up from Adam's dynasty, and then they just don't get named because they're not important enough to be the founder of a dynasty. Once Seth comes along, he becomes the founder of a dynasty in a different place, a few miles down the street, and then so he's named. The dynasty of Adam lives on for some time until it dies out. We don't know why it died out. Perhaps it was a war. Perhaps he just, whoever the ruler was, only had daughters, and he let his son-in-law inherit. Well, his son-in-law is from a different family, he's from a different royal house, right? So he's no longer and those of you who perhaps live in Europe, you're familiar with monarchies. You understand this is how governments or how the crown changes houses, right? That's just, I think it's a very interesting way of doing things, and as it happens, we have historical precedent both in the modern age as well as in ancient times of this exact same thing happening. So Adamite dynasty dies out. What caused it, we don't know, but the story from the perspective of Israel, because again, this is an Israelite book written by an Israelite man who was giving a history of the Israelite people, right? This is not, something that Donald Trump authorized to be written, although he probably did. In fact, I know he did. He has his own translation of the Christian Bible out there, and I think that's funny. Or his own edition of the Bible. If it's not his own translation, it's an edition of the Bible, because surely Donald Trump is not fluent in the original languages. So when we understand that this is told from the Israelite perspective, suddenly it makes sense why we no longer care about Adam after 930 years. We care about him, he's kind of a good guy, but we don't care about that dynasty anymore, because that dynasty is to us, from our perspective, it's dead to us. There's no reason to even consider it. We're just sort of, living in the now. Now we're under Seth's dynasty. Seth, he's our leader, and Seth goes on to have kids. And when it says that, Adam had sons and daughters, okay, these are other colonies that are going out, right? And this is really the best way to grow a population, and generally speaking, they're going to hold very close family ties to each other, and you're going to see that that's how kingdoms form, that's how empires form. If you go back historically, you're going to see that's what happened. If it's not conquest, it's through peaceful means like this. That's how it expands. That's how the empire grows, right? Unless you're, Genghis Khan, in which case, you just raid, rape, and pillage your way across the entire ancient world. and expand your territory that way. And he did a fantastic job of it. Not condoning what he did, not condoning how he did it, just saying he did a really good job of it. Huge empire. But I digress. So, I prefer this model, but next week I'm going to introduce you to a couple more what I think are reasonable possibilities, and we'll just we'll see what you think. You can make up your own mind about it. I don't want you to become a mindless disciple of mine, who just sort of regurgitates everything that I tell you. I want you to think for yourself, because if you don't, well, I mean, then I've really failed at my job, as trying to teach you something. So, that being said, I'm done for today. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you have not subscribed yet to this channel, what's the hold up, man? Just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure your notifications are turned on so that when I put out a video, you get it. Share this video far and wide if you'd like. If you enjoyed it, there's no reason to not share it with other people you think might enjoy it. If you are on Facebook, I am as well. So, come find me on Facebook. Just type in an unorthodox Jew in the search bar. You'll find me. Like and or follow the page, and you'll have access to the content that I put there. Some of the content is exclusive to Facebook. Some of it is just these videos. Feel free to leave me comments both on YouTube and on Facebook. Feel free to share with all your friends if you'd like. Even if it's just kind of a, hey, this guy's kind of weird, what do you guys think, ha ha ha, right? And I'm okay with that, really, because I am kind of weird, let's be honest here. Then, I mean, I'm really rather unorthodox, right? If you have any questions, wonderful, I love questions, go ahead and ask. You can ask in the comments, you can private message me on Facebook. And it may take me a couple of days, but I will respond, I promise. This week is actually really kind of crazy because we have a holiday this week, a 2-day holiday this week, and then a 2-day holiday next week. We are coming up on the Sukkot holiday, so Monday night to Wednesday night of this week, I will not be online, so you won't be able to find me. You can still watch my videos, you can still go to my Facebook page and everything, but I won't be on there, so you won't be able to contact me because I will be off in observance of Sukkot, which is a wonderful holiday, and I plan to make a video in my sukkah at some point during the holiday, but it's probably not going to happen before tomorrow night. So, I'm done. That's all I got. So until next time, shalom. Oh yeah, cut.